Salute BookTube. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. We're on day 18th as I'm recording this of the Trump uh, Netanyahu war. Really, things have settled down to a war of attrition. It's very much like World War One. They just send a barrage of missiles, they reply with a barrage of missiles, and it's just going back and forth with really no progress. Just ongoing destruction and bloodshed, pretty much. So very sad days, and yeah, this barrage of missiles. The country that I'm at, where I'm from, for those of you who are new, is the United Arab Emirates, which is very much in the crosshairs of this war. We have received about 2,000 missiles. About 90% of them have been intercepted by interceptors, missile interceptors. And that's a blessing because had those 2,000 missiles hit their targets, it would have been a much, much different scenario. Um, much more bloodshed, much more death. As it is, the death casualties, I'm talking about deaths, are still in the single digits. Maybe they just crept up to the double digits, maybe 10 or 11. I don't have the count exactly, but as tragic as that is, and it is very tragic, every life is tragic. Um, what I'm trying to say is it could be much, much worse. Um, Now, casualty levels here in the United Arab Emirates are low, but the impact, the economic, I want to say social and psychological aspects, those are going to be, those are much, much more severely hit. Um, Once upon a time, 2 weeks ago, really, 3 weeks ago now, almost 3 weeks ago, the United Arab Emirates was, it had the world's busiest airport, the biggest transit airport in the world, the most flights anywhere in the world coming in and out was here in the United Arab Emirates. It had, well, it still has the longest, tallest building in the world. Who knows how long that'll be standing if this war continues. It was the center of financial transactions and investments and trade, um, from between London to Hong Kong and Singapore, that whole swath of the earth. The United Arab Emirates was the center, a logistical center, a financial center, a tourism center, um, just a meeting point of cultures. There's almost 200 nationalities live in the United Arab Emirates. 200 nationalities. So this is really a war against the world. And yeah, all of that has been severely put under strain. There's nobody knows what's going to happen after, if there is going to be an after, because the N word is being used a lot, especially by the, I think it was the prime minister of the Epstein entity, Netanyahu, who used the N word, nuclear. So things are fluid, but um, we can only hope that this will end soon. Although, if it ends, we're gonna have to pick up the pieces, and I don't know. The challenge for us here in the UAE is how to uh, entice or uh, to um, explain to people why they should come back or why this is still the right place for your investments, the right place for your holidays, the right place for your perhaps buying a second home, building a new life. We had this message once upon a time, but it's taken a severe setback, because of warmongers, um, just absolutely bloodthirsty warmongers who, I don't know, think this is fun. I don't know. Um, this war. of course, Trump didn't get any kind of congressional, not that I know of, maybe I missed something. Did he get any kind of congressional authorization for this? Did he tell any of his allies that we're going to be striking, you should get ready? He did none of that. He just went, he made a decision, him and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio and little Marco, they made the decision. And next day, send and let's do it. And here we are 18 days later, and they're in a bit of a pickle because, at least from what it seems, it doesn't look like there's going to be any overthrow. I could be wrong, but I mean, it's taken a long time, longer than they expected. And it's they're in a bind. They're in a bind. Do they double down and keep hurling missiles and killing civilians until they bring the Islamic Republic of Iran to its knees, just wholesale slaughter, or do they get out? I don't know, somehow with a bit of pride to say, look, we've damaged Iran considerably, but we haven't enacted regime change, but we've damaged them considerably and we've knocked them back 10 years. And are we going to be back to this in 10 years? It's just a disastrous situation. I don't want to make this, I don't want to make this channel is about books. I do mostly read nonfiction, so politics and that kind of thing does creep into my videos. But I don't want to, I'm not an official news source. I follow the news just like everybody else, but I'm not a spokesperson for anybody or anything. And I don't want to turn this channel into an update about the war or what's happening. But I can't keep it out of my mind because every time I open the internet, basically, it's there in my face, and it's also, I can see it and I can hear it, and it's just a bad situation all around for everybody involved, really. The other thing I'll say about the United Arab Emirates, and I think this needs to be, because I don't want, my channel is about books, and I'm doing this out of my love for books, and because I enjoy the BookTube community. In no way did I ever want to make this some kind of financial or a lifestyle or a job or to make money out of this channel. That was never my intention, still isn't my intention. And I know I've been putting a lot of clickbaity sort of thumbnails and titles for videos, and it's been getting a lot, well, not a lot, but more traffic and more views than I think I would get if it was just normal peacetime. But I'm in no way an influencer, but I just, on the subject of influencers and views and clickbait and just, social media influencers, the United Arab Emirates was the capital of influencers, social media influencers in the world, in the entire world. Especially the pernicious manosphere influencers had set up base here in the United Arab Emirates. I'm talking about Mike Thurston, Andrew Tate, Sneeko, the Malaysian guy, whatever his name is. They were important. That's a key word. They were based here in the United Arab Emirates. And of course, there's the female version of it, but the female version was not as pernicious as the male manosphere version of it. A lot of female influencers as well. All those influencers who at the beginning said, you got to be tough, this is a war, we're going to stick it out, they've all left. They've all left because they're cowards. They're cowards. There's no other words to describe them. Andrew Tate, at the beginning, he had the famous, he was dancing while the missiles were raining. He's left. All the others have left, and I saw a video, and it's just, he was a big influencer in Dubai and the Emirates, and he was, talking about how men should be tough, and, you got to be tough. And then he releases a video from the airport saying he's out of here, he's out of the UAE, he's going back because he's British, his family lives in London, he's going back to meet his family in London. He's going to Mummy. He's going to go give Mummy a hug. Mummy, real cowards. And the strange thing is the female influencers compared to the male influencers have been much more stiffer-lipped than the male coward manosphere cowards. There's a lot of influencers. A lot of them are young women. We're talking about 21 to, I don't know, 30, 21 to 30, 35-year-old women who have come to this country, come alone to this country, and have tried to build social media influence and brands. They're all still here. These are women, a lot of them are mostly European, Eastern European women, a lot of Russians, Ukrainians escaping the problems in their countries, a lot of Belarusian, but also Western Europeans, a lot of British female influencers, French, Italian, that sort of thing, German, Dutch. They're still here. They're still here. Yes, they do a lot of obnoxious things. There's a lot of bikini photos and matcha and Pilates, but they're still here. And the male influencers, the manosphere losers are losers. They've run away. They ran away because they're cowards. A lot of women here as well, a lot of younger women, also from Eastern Europe, but also Western Europe, places like Belarus, Kazakhstan, but also French and Italian, Swedish, everywhere really, Indian women. A lot of them also work in the airline industry. We once upon a time had one of the leading airlines in the world, as I mentioned earlier in the video. The UAE, Dubai's airport was the busiest airport in the world. So the aviation industry is very big here. Of course, that's been decimated, at least for the past 2-3 weeks. A lot of those women work cabin crew. They work as cabin crew. They're like air stewardess. I think Americans call them air stewardess, or I think the British. Flight attendants. They work as flight attendants. And again, these are younger women from Europe, from Central Asia, from East Asia, also Arab women. These women are risking their lives. The planes are still flying. They're doing emergency flights, and these women are dodging missiles to fly airplanes or to serve passengers on airplanes so that they can go back to their countries because they're scared about the Trump Epstein entity war. But they're risking their lives while these manosphere cowards have run away. It's actually those flight attendants have been scrambling those manosphere macho man sort of influencers so that they can go back to their home countries. Those flight attendants have to fly back and then fly out again, back and forth, while missiles are being shot and being fired in the sky. So it really shows you. It really shows you where these, the manosphere. They're hucksters. They're liars, and they're weak. When you compare them to these young, I'm talking young, like 24-year-old women, and very attractive women. This is a bit sexist, but you have to be a certain height to be a flight attendant. I'm sorry to say this, but looks matter. It's the same for men. You've got to look presentable at the very least. And yeah, I mean, these, long may they stay, because I've, let's just say, I've enjoyed looking at them. Let's just put it that way. The nightlife here, or what existed of the nightlife. Although the nightlife, it's still there. People are going out for dinners, and it's a resilient bunch. But this is a 15-minute rambling. I said I wouldn't make this video about politics, but I just have a lot on my mind. I just have a lot on my mind. But anyway, this video, okay, we're at the 15th minute mark. This video is a tag video. I was tagged by Mike at Bibliophile Bookscapes. Mike is a good example, actually. While we're on the subject of Mike and Bibliophile Book, you should check out his channel, and you should subscribe to his channel, because Mike is, compared to these manosphere influencer cowards, Mike is a real man. Mike is married. He has a daughter. He lives in middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, but he will break his back to make sure that his wife and his daughter, I believe it's a daughter, uh, live a comfortable life. He busts his ass every day, and he makes booktube videos, and he watches booktube videos just as a release. I mean, you compare him to these cowards who have run away to mummy. They give mummy a hug, but anyway, the British, they spell mum with a U. It's very funny, but anyway. Mike, he made a tag called the Nonfiction Book Tag. I couldn't resist. I wasn't really in the mood for making videos, but when I saw this tag, nonfiction, if you're new to my channel, I read mostly nonfiction, mostly. So this was right up my alley, and I just couldn't resist. So this is the tag. Again, it's called the Nonfiction Book Tag. I don't know if anybody else previously, I'm sure there's been a nonfiction book tag before, but this is the Mike Bibliophile Bookscape edition. So thank you, Mike, for tagging me, and let's get to the prompts. 16 minutes in. Also, my battery's dying, so I need to rush. Prompt number 1: what originally made you interested in reading nonfiction? I've loved nonfiction. I've loved history since I was very small. For some reason, I wasn't the best student at school. I don't like math. I wasn't very interested in science, all the sciences, most of the sciences. But there was something about history. I just read it and I could just grasp it. I don't know what you call it, but I just liked it. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. So it's really school and just enjoying history class. And I think I was like the only one who enjoyed history class in my class. You know, everybody else hated it. Like, you ask people, oh, it was boring. And that, again, depends on the teacher, depends on what you're reading or what you're learning, how it's taught to you. But even if it was a bad teacher, I still enjoyed it. Just enjoyed reading school textbooks, school history textbooks. But if you want to go back, because this started early, like this started when just as I was learning about the world, about reading, you want to get into a book that, from my childhood, that a nonfiction, that history that got me into it. It's this series. This is a very British series. I don't know how big this is in America, but this is quite big in the UK and in Britain. It's the Horrible History series. And you can see it's made for kids. It's almost a graphic novelesque. So before I show it's this one, it's a whole series. This one is the Dark Nights and Dingy Castles. And the author and the creator of this, who's probably a multi-millionaire many times over because of this series, is called Terry Deary. And it's comedic and it's aimed at children, but it's very much history. It's what it says in the back cover here. It says history with the nasty bits left in. And yeah, you get all kinds of like artwork and cartoon, graphic novel, but also with text. So it's a mix of both. It's not completely a graphic novel. So this one's called The Cruel Crusades. That's that chapter. And it's written in a very comedic way, aimed at children. You see here, you've got the thing. It says rabble and rubble. So that kind of thing. Just more artwork. This is a good example. I've probably got others in the series, but this is definitely one of the first I remember, specifically history, that's really got me. We're talking, early childhood, early elementary school. The Horrible History series, you've got this. There's a whole series of books: The Savage Stone Age, The Awesome Egyptians, The Groovy Greeks, The Rotten Romans, The Cutthroat Celts, The Smashing Saxons, The Vicious Vikings, The Stormin' Normans, The Measly Middle Ages, The Angry Aztecs, The Incredible Incas, The Terrible Tudors, even more terrible Tudors. The Tudors were so terrible they made 2 books about them. The Slimy Stuarts, The Gorgeous Georgians, The Vile Victorians, The Frightful First World War, The Woeful Second World War, and The Blitzed Brits. So yeah, just a whole, and there's even more. There's others like Horrible History Specials and 2 books in one, all kinds of stuff. But this is the one I have, Dark Nights and Dingy Castles. I've probably got others. I've still got my childhood books. Maybe if I looked, I can probably find more of the Horrible Histories. I'm sure I still have them. So that's prompt number one for what was it? Originally made you interested in reading nonfiction. That's definitely one of them. Prompt number two: do you read nonfiction mainly for curiosity, learning, or enjoyment? All three. All three: curiosity, learning, and enjoyment. I'm just curious. I like to learn, and I I enjoy reading it. I know not everybody does, but I do. It's reached the point, about learning and curiosity. If there's something in the news, so now Iran is in the news. So I was at the bookstore just yesterday. I went to the Iranian book section and just looking at the books about Iran. That's what I don't even read news anymore. I just go to books and try to learn not just about what's happening, today or yesterday or last week, but through the whole span of history of that one specific country or nation or region that's in the news. So for me, it's all three really. Prompt number three: what topic could you read endless nonfiction about? Um, well, again, I'm based in the Middle East, and for me, Middle East, I'm a bit biased, but for me, Middle Eastern history is my, what was it? What does it say? Read endlessly. Like, what could you read endlessly for? I could do that. Um, if I had to narrow it down, because the Middle East is a very ancient part of the world, probably the most ancient civil history, not prehistory, but history. Um, so if I was to narrow it down, I would probably say my favorite subject is early 20th century or first half of the 20th century, maybe also late 19th century Middle East. And that coincides with the coming of Britain into the Middle East. Britain was, they were in the Middle East, but the Ottoman Empire was always um, in charge in the Middle East. But as the Ottoman Empire was becoming weaker and weaker, the sick man of Europe, Britain started to come more and more. And then after the First World War, Britain pretty much controlled the entire Middle East. Now that would have been all well and good, but after World War One, Britain itself was in decline. At least, well, not Britain, but the British Empire. So it coincided with British coming, but then the British left quite quickly. They stayed really for about 30 years until Britain was decimated by the Second World War. The British Empire was decimated by the Second World War, and Britain too, but the Empire. So it's that period. I've got a couple of books just as an example. So this is, I mean, these are just random. I have so many books about the Middle East. I could have picked millions. I just picked two. This one is called Empire of Sand. The subtitle is How Britain Made the Middle East. Walter Reed. So this is everything from World War One, Lawrence of Arabia, the British Mandate system in Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, that kind of thing. The Gulf, where I'm based. This is another example. It's by Garner Thompson. It's called Legacy of Empire: Britain, Zionism, and the Creation of Israel. You can see there, that's a famous, the topi hat, I think it's called, where the British soldiers used to wear. I'm very interested in this, and I've got a writing project. If I ever do publish my novel, it's probably going to be about this era. 1930s, 1940s, Middle East. That's all I'll say now. I don't want to keep going on and on about it. I'll keep you in suspense. Maybe one day I'll release it, and maybe four of you will buy a copy. And but again, that if I could read anything endless, that period it's fascinating because it's the emergence of Arab states, but it's also Western penetration. And yes, Britain declined, but America came in right after to pick up the pieces, and it's just, I find it fascinating. Again, it's local history. I'm a bit biased, but that's what I came up with. Prompt number four: how do you usually discover nonfiction books? Well, initially it used to be me just perusing the bookshelves, looking what's there, what looks interesting. Also, before I would look at book reviewers, what the bookish world were saying, what were book sections and newspapers, and back when newspapers still were around, or online journals, etc. Things like Goodreads. But if you ask me now, today, what does it for me? Where do I get my ideas? Where do I get? I'm gonna have to say BookTube. I mean, can I say anything other than BookTube? Um, you just watch BookTube. hear what people are saying. And this doesn't just go for nonfiction, it goes for fiction too, because I want to read more fiction. So I've bombarded. It's to the point where I think now I need to watch BookTube with a pen and paper in hand and just write notes, because you just, I mean, it filters into your ear, into your head, and then you go to the bookstore and say, oh yeah, that booktuber was talking about that. Oh yeah, about this and that, and it sticks to your head. So BookTube now has changed. It's changed my how I what was it? How do you usually discover nonfiction books? But this applies for all books. BookTube. BookTube made me do it. Um, um, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Prompt number 5. Do you follow authors or topics when choosing nonfiction? Um, Previously, when I was younger, I used to take a much more scattergun approach. I just buy whatever history. Oh, that looks good. Boom, put it in the cart. Put it in the cart. Just everything. And so I had a very, we can call it undisciplined library, where the subject matters range from all over the place. As I've grown older and I've realized, it's impossible to read every book, although I'm determined to do it. It's impossible to read every book. And what you do when you get older is you start to narrow down or specialize. You start to see what you like and what you don't like. And so I've narrowed it down. I've become my goal in my I consider myself entering the second half of my life. My goal is to prune my library, or to what's the word, um, to make my library, get rid of what I don't need or what I've purchased on whims, or this looked interesting at the time, and then just stack or stock my bookshelves with the books that I want to keep, or that when I die, people will be like, oh, he liked this subject and this topic and this topic. So I've become much more. What does the prompt say? Do you follow authors or topics when choosing nonfiction? There are certain authors I will, I'll if they come out with a new book, I'll definitely be interested in picking it up as soon as possible. So Andrew Roberts, for example, Christopher Clark, famous historians, I might, but what I want to do is I want to, I think, focus my library more on Middle Eastern stuff. But then again, when you're talking about the Middle East, it's always global. There's always a British or an American aspect. The Middle East is, there's so many actors, and it's not just the local actors. They're not living in isolation. So yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, I used to buy or purchase books, follow a topic and pick up books or whatever looks interesting. But now I'm trying to be more selective. But again, BookTube, is getting me back to the old days where I'm just learning and hearing about so many books and topics. So it's a mess. In short, it's just a mess. Prompt number 6. What nonfiction book stuck with you long after reading? Well, a lot of books stuck to me, a lot of nonfiction books. If I had to choose one, I would choose. I read this book, but I read it. It was a library copy. I gave it back. I really wanted to purchase it. I saw it at the new bookstore. It was very expensive. I went yesterday to the new bookstore just to get my mind off things. And what better way to get your mind off things than book shopping? I didn't purchase any books because they were expensive, but this book used to be there. It's not there anymore at the new bookstore, but I read this and I returned it to the library. It's by Andrew Lambert, and it's called Sea Power States. Sorry about the glare. Sea Power States. You can see it's got a nice blurb there. Historically groundbreaking. Andrew Roberts, the famous historian. And very beautiful cover there with the sea and... sorry about this glare. What does Andrew Lambert say in this book, Sea Power States? It stuck in my head because it opened my mind to the power of the sea, or sea power. When we think of history and military history, we always think of armies and land armies. But there have been empires and civilization that were very much sea-oriented, and they're very different. So the United States is a land army. Russia, the Soviet Union, was a land army. Rome was a land army. They had navies, but they weren't, their society wasn't geared towards sea power. And this just changed my mind about sea power and how sea power can be important, because even the my country, UAE, had a strong, it wasn't a country, UAE, it was this region had a strong naval, a very rich maritime history. In fact, its history was very much, I wouldn't call it a sea superpower, but they were a strong mercantile and marine-based civilization. And this is what Andrew Lambert discusses here. Here he discusses mostly Western sea powers. From memory, if I remember, he speaks about the Athenian Empire, which was very much maritime, the Carthaginian Empire, the Venetian Empire, the Dutch Empire, and then the British Empire. So I think those are the five. I don't know if I'm forgetting something, but those he discusses as maritime sea powers, and they have certain similarities, very strong democratic fervor, democratic notions, democratic societies. There are similarities. I don't want to go through all of them now, but if you ever see this book, do give it a try. It will. What was the prompt? What did the prompt say? That stuck with you long after reading. Definitely stuck with me. And then he discusses what are not. You would think the Spanish Empire was maritime, but it wasn't. The Portuguese, but these were despotic regimes. So again, it stuck to my head and changed my outlook about how you look at empires. Prompt number 7. What topic have you learned the most about through books? I've learned everything through books. I don't know how to answer this one. Everything. What have I learned most? I would say, you see here, my shelves here behind you are mostly my Middle Eastern books. The shelf I've got exactly parallel, symmetrical to this shelf, another shelf of books here, and here's mostly my American, British, and European history books. I would say American history, I've learned a lot through books. What was the problem? What did it say? What have you learned the most about through books? I'd say America. I learned a lot about America. I'm not American, but I think I can. I don't know if I can go toe to toe with an American, but I think I can do well. What I like about American history is when I'm talking about America, I'm talking about the United States of America, the nation state that evolved from European colonization. It's got a beginning, it's got a birthday, and it's modern. It's very recent. I mean, if you want to go back to colonial times, it's 500 years old. If you want to go back to when America was founded in 1776, it's only 250 years. So it's not that long, and it's so well documented because it's so new. So I would put I've learned a lot about America through books. Again, for a non-American, I think I'm not bad. Prompt number 8. What nonfiction book made you curious about something unexpected? For this one, did I get the other copy? Well, we can use this one. Well, I have this copy, but it's not very aesthetically pleasing. I've been reading a lot about Carthage recently, so this is Carthage: A History by B.H. Warmington. But maybe this cover is nicer to look at. This is much more modern. Robert Miles, Carthage Must Be Destroyed: The Rise and Fall of an Ancient Civilization. Because Carthage was defeated, not a lot of people know about it. And of course, Rome, dominates because they defeat the Carthaginians. But I learned a lot. One thing I learned, a lot of people know about the Persian attacks against the Greeks when the Persian emperor, was it Xerxes, who tried attempted to invade the Greek islands and Hellas, Greece, and was driven back. What I didn't know was around the same time, the Carthaginians, or the Phoenicians, who were the ancestors of the Carthaginians, had attacked Greek Sicily at the same time. The historians and archaeologists are not sure, but it's roughly the same time. It was almost a two-pronged attack. And a lot of Greek writers of antiquity and Romans later discussed it as a two-pronged attack. The Persians trying to invade Greece, and then the Phoenicians or the Carthaginians trying to invade Sicily, which was heavily populated by Greeks, at around the same time. But we don't know much. We know a lot about the Greeks and the Persians. We know very little about the Carthaginian Phoenicians against Sicily. So that was something that, what did the prompt say? A nonfiction book that made you curious about something unexpected. I wasn't expecting. I didn't know that. I had no idea. The other thing I think I found interesting about that was the Carthage was based in what is today Tunisia in northern Africa, not too far from the Italian peninsula and from Sicily. One thing that is unexpected and I think should be explored deeply was we know, as I mentioned, seems like the Persians and the Phoenicians attacked what is, it crystallized what is West and East. These Asiatic empires invaded or attempted to invade what became Europe. But what was, I lost my train of thought. It was said that the Phoenicians, the navy that the Persians used to invade Greece was mostly a Phoenician navy, that they were allies, and it was the Phoenicians who furnished a navy for the Persians to invade. The Battle of Salamis, I believe, is the great naval battle of antiquity in which the Greeks defeated the Persians. Most of those ships were Phoenician ships. The question is, Carthage, it's dominated by its experiences with Rome and Greece. But what about Carthage and ancient Egypt? Ancient Egypt was just across the desert. They were very close, and there was so much archaeological okay, I'm getting my batteries dying. I need to end this. Maybe I'll make it in two parts, or I'll edit it. The Carthaginian, there was a lot of Egyptian influences in Carthage, but as the Carthaginians and the Romans were battling and killing each other, the Egyptians were just standing back, chilling, watching the action. What was ancient Egypt's role in this, and what was Carthaginian ancient Egyptian relations like? What were Carthaginian Persian relations like? Carthage and other Asian empires. We know a lot about Spain and Sicily and Sardinia and Italy and Greece, but what about the others? And I guess that's something more for Asian historians or Middle Eastern historians to discover, probably more than Western ones. But again, that was to answer that prompt. What did it say again? What not makes you curious about something unexpected? So that's what I came up with. Okay, there's three more. I don't know if I can do this. I'll try. What topic would you recommend? Prompt number 9. What topic would you recommend everyone explore at least once? For this, I think I'm gonna combine this with number 10. It says, what nonfiction book would you recommend to curious readers? So for number 9, it says, what topic? For me, a topic I would recommend for Western people to read more about, to learn more about. I'm sure they do, but to explore at least once, I'd have to say is Middle Eastern history, especially modern Middle Eastern history. Again, that early 20th century, things before America became a superpower or became a superpower, pre-World War II Middle East. What happened in the 1930s, the 20s, the 1890s, the 1870s, that kind of thing. If America... I'm going to lecture America about their education system, but a lot of it is European based. And there's nothing wrong with that because the culture, we understand that a lot of it came from Europe. But if America is going to get involved in endless Middle Eastern wars, and if China is going to be the growing uh, near. Sorry, BookTube, my battery died, so I'm making another video. I'll just edit it and combine the two. But yeah, like I was saying, if if America is going to get involved in endless wars in the Middle East, and with the rise of China as a near peer competitor and an adversary, a sort of superpower adversary on the near horizon, you would think American education system would take a bit more of a global approach. I mean, that would mean, of course, teaching European history is important, but again, if we're talking about elementary school or high school, or we're talking about maybe early university. Yeah, of course, you've got Western Civ, and yeah, that's important. But if America and Americans are going to get involved in the Middle East endlessly, it seems, and if there's some kind of future confrontation with East Asia and China and that part of the world, you would think that the education system would reflect that to get. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So when it says, what does the prompt say? It says, what topic would you recommend everyone explore at least once? I don't know about everyone, but I'm talking about more of a Western audience. Yes, your history is important, but I think younger Western people should really understand, you know, the Middle East, uh, East Asia more than they are taught. I think that's important because it looks like that's where the future is. You look at the Middle East and this current Trump Netanyahu war, they've sent two battle carriers, strike groups, and there's all kinds of they're heavily involved. You compare that to what's happening in the Ukrainian Russian war, for example, which is still ongoing. What has America sent? Like five CIA agents? Like Europe is important, but it is not. It looks like there's a bigger pivot as the Obama administration, the Obama doctrine, the pivot to Asia. I think they were talking about East Asia, but also the Middle East. If they're going to keep getting involved, it needs to be a more holistic. So when it says, well, yeah, what topic would you recommend everyone explore at least once? That wouldn't hurt. Maybe looking into more Middle Eastern, more Asian history, and trying to understand it better, I guess. And the same is true for people here in the Middle East. They need to uh, understand the West more rather than focusing on their very, I don't know, chauvinistic sort of history. All the glory of Islam. We were once upon a time very glorious empire. Yes, okay, but you gotta spread out a bit more. But that's what I came up with for prompt number 9. Prompt number 10 says, what nonfiction book would you recommend to curious readers? These are serious readers. Again, I stick to the Middle East, but this is more Islamic history. I've recommended this book many times. Um, this is a fantastic, fantastic book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's curious, who wants to understand uh, the Middle East, but who wants to understand Islam specifically. It's by Barnaby Rogerson, and it's called The Heirs to the Prophet Muhammad. The subtitle is, the title is The Heirs of the Prophet Muhammad, and the Roots of the Sunni Shia Schism. Schism, I think is how you pronounce the word. That word right there, schism. Yeah. Here it's an Arabic script, but these are the heirs to the Prophet. So Barnaby Rogerson has a book called the Prophet, the Time of the Prophet Muhammad, something like that. That's the part 1. This is the sequel, and that's the heirs. What happened right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad? And again, in the Arabic script, you get the 4 caliphs, khalifas in Arabic of Islam: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. Again, how many people know who these people are? But they're important, and this book is excellent because it talks about the Sunni Shiite schism, and again, I don't know how many people know about it because it's been portrayed in Western media as this sort of they hate each other, and that's far from the truth. There hasn't. I don't want to say that. That's a bit. It isn't as. It could be worse. Let's just put it that way. They could be at each other's throats. Not really. That really hasn't been the case. There was a schism right at the beginning of Islam, but the two sects, Sunnism and Shiism, they've lived side by side, whether they like it or not. It does flare out from time to time. There was a oil-funded fundamentalist movement that takes a very anti-Shia view. There's the Iranian Islamic Republic, which is very chauvinistically Shia, but to understand, if you're curious about Islamic history, I highly, highly recommend this book. This is, again, when you see a book with a blurb like this, you know it's good. And this is, I can't recommend this highly enough. One of my favorites in nonfiction, at least. And again, a good primer to understand the early Islamic history, but also to understand Islam. And a good book. This is one I would recommend for, what does the prompt say? Let me just pull it out. What nonfiction book would you recommend to curious readers? And then prompt number 11, the final one, is what nonfiction book would you give to someone who says they don't like nonfiction? This is a tough one. Usually people who don't read nonfiction, they're hard to convert, to join the dark side. If they only knew the power of the dark side. I would go, this one I've multiple times on this channel, but I'm going to highlight it again. It's by Candace Millard, Destiny of the Republic. The subtitle is A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President. And it's about this guy, the 20th President of the United States, James A. Garfield. Garfield, his administration, his rule, his presidency, it lasted 6 months. He was inaugurated in March. He was murdered in September of 1881, I want to say, 1881. So he's an obscure 19th century US president. But this book, if you're not into nonfiction, it's so good, and it's recently, and I'm not surprised, recently been made into a Netflix series, I think a short series, 4 episodes, but I'm not surprised because this is a fantastic story. Whether you're into nonfiction or fiction, it's just beautifully written, and you might think like obscure 19th century US president, but trust me, if you dare, it's really fantastic. Garfield was, let me read, I pulled out the Wikipedia for James A. Garfield. I just read the first paragraph just to give you an idea of, it says, James Abram Garfield was the 20th President of the United States, serving from March 1881 until September of that year after being shot in July. So he was shot in July, but he doesn't die until September. That gives you a hint. There's the word medicine. Medicine plays a big part in this too. This is the early X-ray, early penicillin days. But a preacher, lawyer, and Civil War general. So he was a preacher. Okay, you get the idea. Garfield served 9 terms in the United States House of Representatives and is the only sitting member of the House to be elected president. Fact of the day. Before he ran for president, the Ohio General Assembly had elected him to the U.S. Senate, a position he declined upon becoming president-elect. Garfield was born into poverty in a log cabin and grew up in Northeast Ohio. After graduating from Williams College in 1856, he studied law and became an attorney. Garfield was a preacher in the Restoration Movement and president of the Western Reserve Eclectic Institute, affiliated with the Disciples. He was religious background as well as his war background and his education as a lawyer from poverty, from bootstraps. He lifted himself up from the bootstraps. He was elected as the Republican member of the Ohio State Senate in 1859, serving until 1861. Garfield opposed the Confederate secession, was a major general in the Union Army during the American Civil War, and fought in the battles of Middle Creek, Shiloh, and Chickamauga. He was elected to Congress in 1862 to represent Ohio's 19th District. Throughout his congressional service, Garfield firmly supported the gold standard. He gained a reputation as a skilled orator. He initially agreed with the radical Republican views on Reconstruction, but later favored moderate Republican aligned approach to Civil War rights. Enforcement for freedmen. Garfield's aptitude for mathematics extended to his own proof of the Pythagorean theorem, published in 1876, and his advocacy of using statistics to inform government policy. So really, a kind of genius prodigy, again, comes from a poor background, gets himself educated as an attorney, has a mathematical, he does mathematical theorems, proofs, and mathematical experiments, I guess is the word. He was a Civil War general. He was a preacher. He was a very good orator, and so he had a lot of promise, and he was he had a lot of promise. His presidency though only lasted 6 months, and that's why whenever somebody says Garfield, we remember a fat lazy cat cartoon. But he was really, had he lived, had he maybe served a full term, he would have probably been one of the great American presidents, just from his CV, just from what we read from his Wikipedia entry. Just a bright guy who was tragically removed. But this story, again, the Wikipedia, don't let the Wikipedia discourage you. This is an excellent book. So again, for the prompt that said, what do you recommend? What did it say? Sorry about this. What nonfiction book would you give to someone who says they don't like nonfiction? This is a good example. And if you don't like this, you absolutely can't read nonfiction if your life depended on it. Check out the Netflix series. Also getting rave reviews. I still haven't seen it, but if it's halfway as good as this, then it'll be good. Despite what looks like a very opaque, very obscure subject matter. That's it. Mike at Bibliophile Bookscape has tagged a whole bunch of people who I usually tag. Who am I gonna tag? Did he tag? I'm gonna tag Angelina. Books do things to me. Angelina is too cool for BookTube. She stopped making BookTube videos because she's too cool. I'll tag her anyway. Shelf Learner, I always tag him. He's a deep reader. He likes nonfiction. I know his tags aren't really his thing. His channel has a very unique style, so voluntary, but I'll tag you anyway. Check out his channel. Who else do I want to tag? Alex, the unabashed reader. I know he's recently made a newbie tag 2.0. He's been gone for so long. It's only right that he does another newbie tag and he comes back into the BookTube fold. Another good channel to check out. Who else do I want to tag? James Holder. James Holder I want to tag. He's been doing a library tour of all his books. He's very much in his history bookshelves, which I'm enjoying very much. So James is another big history reader. He might enjoy this tag. I'll tag him if he wants to do this. Consider yourself tagged. Who should I put for number 5? I'm not gonna put any. If you have a BookTube, just because I didn't list you doesn't mean if you're interested in doing this, by all means, you have a BookTube channel, or if you want to do it in the comments, feel free, consider yourself tagged. I'm going to wrap this up because it's going very, very long. I want to thank Mike for doing this tag, for originating this tag, for tagging me. I really appreciate it, getting my mind off just the whole situation here. And I'm very sorry about the rant at the beginning of the video. I think I'm going to go out. I spoke about the high number of female influencers, attractive young um, influencers, and young professional ladies here. Now that all the cowardly manosphere douchebags have run away because they're cowards, that's more of them for me. Uh, maybe I'll go chat one of them up, and we'll have a nice conversation. Then she'll ask me, "Well, what are you interested in?" And then I'll be like, I enjoy reading Jonathan Steinberg's Bismarck, A Life. Maybe that'll get her interested, but she'll probably be like, "What, weirdo?" I'm sorry, I have to go. And I'll be like, but Bismarck, he instituted socialism for every German, and he co-opted the German Catholics into the majority Protestant German Reich. And she'll be like, "Okay, mister, just leave me alone right now." And I'll be like, "No, but he was victorious in the Battle of Sedan." By that point, the girl will be she'll be gone. But I won't bore you with my dating life, my disappointing dating life. I'll wrap this up. Check out Mike's version of this and his channel down below. Thank you again, BookTube, for your attention. Salute.